At this point in the game, Birthright enters a period of extreme enemy stat stagnation. Enemies don't get much stronger while your units quickly grow to outscale them. In a typical playthrough, these maps are extremely easy, but when all enemies have 100 crit, they're all still extremely easy. As such, I will discuss the next 7 maps more quickly than other chapters. In chapter 15 of Birthright against enemies with 100 crit, we fight 59 Wolfskin who all have 100 crit. That said, while the enemies sometimes have some skills, none of this variety actually matters since they can't do any damage to my units. I just arm Wolfgang the Great Knight with a Beast Killer and have him slaughter the entire Wolfgang to complete the map. In chapter 16 of Birthright against enemies with 100 crit, we fight inside a palace against enemies with 100 crit. There's a pretty nasty group of promoted units near the start of the map. Sorcerers especially are quite scary and can one-shot my generals with critical hits, but more importantly they are hidden behind locked doors, so I can't get rid of them before they attack. After a decent number of failed attempts, I figure out a strat where I use some advanced movement techs to kill the enemy thieves and block the doors, preventing the strong enemies from getting out of their rooms. However, after this initial challenge, the rest of the map is easily handled by slow attrition. Near the end of the map, I capture another general named Hubert, whose undying fealty is bought and paid for with 15 fish and 11 Daikon radishes, which is a steep price, but worth it for such a fine soldier. In chapter 17 of Birthright against enemies with 100 crit, we move to subjugate the Ice Tribe who all have 100 crit. If you really want to, you can just move across the map to defeat Flora to complete the map immediately, but if you want the treasure, you'll need to visit the houses. Instead of getting loot, you instead spawn an enemy ambush of soldiers that drop loot, which is pretty much the same thing, but you also get XP. I clear the entire map and have Roland delete Flora with a 54 damage crit. In chapter 18 of Birthright against enemies with 100 crit, we fight Leo, his retainers, and 84 summoned faceless, who all have 100 crit. This map can also be pretty easily completed in 1 or 2 turns by attacking Leo, but I decided to play it the long way to see how it goes. I find that fighting all the faceless is mostly just tedious because they are all incredibly weak, having only around 20 attack each. Since they can't even damage most of my characters, I just form a big wall with all my generic units and repeatedly spam end turn, letting me clear them in massive quantities. Eventually, Leo and his retainers move in, and Leo one-shots Liam, the generic Wyvern Knight, with an off-screen critical hit, but I'm honestly not even fazed at the loss. I'm not willing to reset and play the whole map all over again, so I just immediately take out Odin, Niles, and Leo to get the loot and complete the chapter. In chapter 19 of Birthright against enemies with 100 crit, we fight a bunch of weird enemies with fucked up stats such as generals with 0 defense. But aside from this gimmick, this map isn't very interesting, especially since none of these weird units are capturable. In chapter 20 of Birthright against enemies with 100 crit, we face another map full of faceless inside the stomach of a dead dragon, even though these faceless all have 100 crit. Since all of them have pathetic attack, this map is trivial to clear if you have at least one unit with high defense. We then finally move on to chapter 21 of Birthright against enemies with 100 crit, which is a lava map with many Stoneborn who have 100 crit. I was pretty nervous going into this map because I was afraid that the Stoneborn could one-shot my characters from a long range with critical hits, but as it turns out, my concern was unwarranted. Stoneborn in the Birthright route are much weaker than they are in Conquest, and furthermore, all Stoneborn weapons have a hidden flag that prevents them from landing criticals, making this map pretty much just as easy as it would be in a normal Birthright run. There is a gimmick though, where to progress by a land route, you have to pick between 2 dragon veins. The correct vein creates a land route to the next area, but the incorrect one turns the floor into lava and makes you fight 5 turns of reinforcements before creating the path. I pick incorrectly once out of 3 times, but all it really does is slightly slow me down. Once I get past all 3 dragon veins, I just send a pair up of the generic generals Roland and Hubert forward, and with their massive defenses, they were able to wade past an entire army to kill the boss and complete the map. With 7 more or less free maps out of the way, we finally exit the easy middle stretch of Birthright and enter the endgame where increased enemy scalings can hopefully provide an interesting challenge.